right, welcome back everyone. In the last clip, we went ahead and set our in and out points. In this clip, we're gonna start creating a timeline to put all of these lovely rough cutted footage ready to go to start editing. So for this, we're gonna switch from our source panel to our program panel. The program panel is essentially the stage or the canvas of where all your edits are going to occur. Right now there's nothing on it, but that's because we do not have a sequence or a timeline in this element. To create a sequence or a timeline, you can do this a few different ways. You could go to the new item button and select sequence, but because you're beginners, I want you to just grab your first clip, your establishing shot, and I want you to left click it, hold it down, hold that left mouse button down, and drag it to the little new icon here, and just let go. What this is gonna do is create a timeline called establishing shot just of that clip. Now we're going to go through and put these clips in this singular sequence, but let's go ahead and organize just slightly. In my project panel, I'm going to go to the new bin button, and I'm going to create a new bin called sequences, and that's what you just made. If you notice, the establishing shot now says this, has this little new icon with all these little rectangular bars. I'm going to click with my left mouse button and drag that in, and let's rename it. So you can right click and rename. And we're going to call this, pardon me, there we go, master sequence. And when we do that, it's going to rename our sequence and we're good to go. So now that we have our track established, what you'll notice is that this track was put on the very first track here called V1. And what I can do now is I can see that it only brought in that in and out point clip. So that's 7 seconds we originally worked with. And now I can start putting my clips together. So I'm gonna go ahead and move the water clip down. Now I can do this a few different ways. So let's look at our timeline in general. We have kind of this current time indicator or this time slider. We have all the different time code up here. We even have a blue marker, just like we did for in and out, where I could type 7 and it's going to go to a specific point. We have tons of audio tracks and tons of video tracks. These are really great. Each of these tracks is malleable, meaning you can click with your left mouse button and open it up. I sometimes just like to double click inside the blank space of the track just so I can see what I'm looking at. At the bottom of the timeline, we can stretch or we can shrink. We can also do that in a vertical manner. I don't necessarily like to do these stretches over here. I just usually use this one at the bottom. It makes things just a little bit easier. All right, let's get going. Let's add that water clip by holding our left mouse button down. And if we drag and hold that mouse button down, it's gonna snap. But let's say you didn't drag and snap. This is not a big deal because if you have a blank space in Premiere Pro, you tap it with your left mouse button, hit delete, and the two tracks will merge together. And we'll continue to go through and add more clips. Let me show you another way you can do that. So if I scroll to the bottom of my timeline and I hold Shift, it's going to snap to it. And I grab the clip 3 here in my timeline. In the program panel, you're going to see a couple of options. We have lift, we have extract. Those are really great. But we have the ability to kind of drop this clip in using that source panel again. Now, I'm just showing you this because you're new. You can just drag them in as you want. But if I drag in the clip and I use insert, it's going to insert it on whatever highlighted track you have. So let me show you that again. If I go ahead and highlight track 2 right here, and I hit insert, it's going to go to track 2. So people ask me all the time, what are all these little highlightable buttons? That's just helping you kind of single out a track to drop things in on. So if you have a certain track highlighted, you can go ahead and just, go to that source panel again and plop it right in as you go. Now that's our end shot. We want to make sure we're double clicking on our intro to camper shot there. But this is going to help you kind of guide you into dropping that specific footage where you need to go. So again, lots of different ways. I just like kind of this drag and drop method. So we're going to go through and we're going to play a little bit with our clips and we're just putting them in order, nothing fancy. Now, if you do happen to drag a clip on top of another clip, let me show you what happens. It actually cuts the clip in half. So if that happens, that could be a cool method, by the way, but I want to undo this. So I can go to Edit, Undo, or hit Control or Command Z to get away from that. So just keep that in mind. And when you get to the end of your timeline, you're going to just pull your bar out here, and you're going to continue to do this. And I'm going to add the snacks here. I'm going to add cooking. I want to overlap these. So I'm going to just kind of overlap some clips right here. So I'm going to drag the cooking track, and let's find a good time code at the 46-second mark. I'm going to put that cooking track or clip on track 2. And then I'm going to have my end shot, and let's start that at a pretty even time code. Let's start that at the 50-second mark. Make sure we put all our zeros in, and make sure for sure that we zoom in and just move that track out. Now, as we have that, we really now have the ability to continue to edit. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and trim the tracks by just hovering my mouse button over the edge and pulling a track to be less. If I want to extend the track, I could pull it out. Again, it's going to go with that in and out point. If I have two tracks that are together and I trim it and I don't want any space, that's where some of the other tools in Premiere Pro will come in handy. For instance, if I hold my Control key down, I'm actually going to get something called the Ripple Edit tool. The Ripple Edit tool can be found in the toolbar right here, the third option. And all that fancily means is if I pull and trim a clip, you're going to notice that it tightens it up without keeping the gap. I'm going to hit Control Z because I like the way that we set it up. And again, most of you are just beginners, so we're keeping things real easy. So at this point, your clip should be, if you laid it out the way I laid it out, should be roughly 57 seconds and 1 frame. So go ahead, lay out your clips this way, and in the next video, we're going to continue to add things like transitions and really to build the polish of these clips. See you in the next lesson.